The greatest cartoon characters of all time, classic television, exciting football in the spring. This is the USCFL Network, celebrating 40 years of excellence.
YouTube, the American Association of Animation and First and 10 Productions presents the USCFL Pre-Game Show. An inside look into the United States Cartoon Football League and a preview of tonight's featured game, right here on the USCFL Network. Presented by Robbie Graham.
Greetings, cartoon and football fans, and especially fans of She-Ra. This is Robbie Graham of the USCFL Network as we continue to chronicle a unique event here on YouTube that pits the She-Ra of yesterday against the She-Ra of today in a special episode runoff tournament. For 13 weeks and 25 rounds, we're pitting one episode from the new series in chronological order against one episode from the original series at random. And we're comparing each episode in terms of style, presentation, and similarity and are being presented in audio format only. After 18 rounds, the original She-Ra is leading the new She-Ra by the score of 118 to 57. And remember, we're using the same scoring system as in football, where 0 is an episode that's absolutely lousy to 8, which is an episode that's exceptional. To my surprise, this weekend, both She-Ras did exceptionally well in this week's competition, and we will tell you more about it in a few moments. But first, we want to introduce you the USCFL's own intellectual property. While the USCFL has teams representing Disney, Hanna-Barbera, Warner Brothers, Fox, Filmation, Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, DC Comics, Marvel Comics, and Jim Henson. We also have other teams that features characters from different time periods as well. But we do have one intellectual property, and she happens to be a superheroine herself. And in a few moments, you're about to meet her, and you will learn all about her, because she is not only our own intellectual property, but she is a literary character, and we will tell you about it in just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the USCFL's intellectual property. Her name is Fashion Girl, also known as the stylish crime fighter. Fashion Girl was created by me back in 2007. Initially, she was supposed to have been Daphne Blake's alter ego, but a lot of the people who I knew at the time didn't like the idea of my using Daphne as the model for Fashion Girl. So instead, I retooled the character, rewrote all new stories, and made Fashion Girl Daphne Blake's daughter with Daphne deceased. And believe me, as a Daphne fan, I did not want to do that. But in a way, it did help make Fashion Girl a standalone character. But even though she was modeled after Daphne Blake, she also possesses the traits of Wonder Woman, Xena, and She-Ra. So that's why I'm bringing her up in this week's feature. And you might ask yourself, what does Fashion Girl and She-Ra have in common with one another? Well, for starters, as you can see in this picture, their costumes are pretty much similar in design. A strapless dress with tall boots and other features. But as you can see, that Fashion Girl looks more like her more well-known mother than She-Ra. But they both possess the same kind of characteristics. And they also share the fact in common that they were both treated in one way or another like a bastard at a family reunion, because Fashion Girl was looked upon very poorly at first. But now that she's her own character, a lot more people feel that she's a different character. And as you know, with the She-Ra controversy, this controversy that has surrounded her for more than a year now has affected how we look upon her now. And I said throughout this series of episode tournaments that it's not right, and I will stick by that. But Fashion Girl and She-Ra also shares this in common. She-Ra is Fashion Girl's mentor, and she also has helped Fashion Girl in many different cases. And in the final book of the Fashion Girl series that I'm currently in the process of bringing out in the near future, after all the times that She-Ra had helped the Style Chicks and Fashion Girl help become who they are, the controversy that surrounded She-Ra angered Fashion Girl and her friends, which, as I said a moment ago, are called the Style Chicks. Each Style Chick is their own character, and they all have their own abilities and powers. and are just as revered as Fashion Girl is. And here's a kicker. The Style Chicks are named for department and specialty stores, and they do not represent, promote, or sell any merchandise for the stores that they're named after. Because I worked in the retail industry for many years, and after I became unofficially retired at the time, I decided to call the Fashion Girls assistants the Style Chicks based on that premise of being named for department stores. Almost in the same way the Ninja Turtles were named for Renaissance artists and the Sailor Scouts were named for the planets. So the Style Chicks are named for department and specialty stores. And in one particular story I'm writing that I call 2 Shades of Grayskull, sort of a play on the actual title, 50 Shades of Grey. The competition between the 2 She-Ras actually was spawned last November after Thanksgiving in that first exhibition game that I had told you about at the start of this series. And as you know, the new She-Ra defeated the original She-Ra by 2 touchdowns in that first game, and then they met 4 months later, and the original She-Ra won the rematch. So, as you know, this final competition should prove once and for all who indeed is the true Princess of Power. And Fashion Girl and her friends helped the original She-Ra overcome this controversy by trying to help explain to her everything that has happened. But to give you sort of a hint of how She-Ra is in this particular story, here's how it is. The war against the evil horde is over with. She-Ra is now an ambassador to a group of interplanetary heroes called the Galactic Alliance. She is their ambassador, but she feels that being an ambassador is sort of a step down as to what she is, a warrior. And once a warrior, always a warrior, in her opinion and probably in everyone else's opinion. But Fashion Girl and the Style Chicks helped She-Ra realize that she is still as popular today as if she ever was. And that this controversy would blow over, and pretty much it has. And I admit that the USCFL got into this game kind of late as far as the controversy was concerned, because I didn't know that it was going on initially at first. In July of last year, I had no idea that this was happening. I'm not really big on social media, and I admit that I'm not big on social media. And most of all, She-Ra does have time here on Earth as well. Now, of course, again, as I told you, under normal circumstances, this would not be the case. But you got to remember that this is a work of fiction, and it's also a great way to look at She-Ra in a different way. And for the record, in this story, She-Ra is the original She-Ra. She is fully aware of this controversy, and the Style Chicks are going to help her out in this story. And I hope that when the book comes out in the near future, that you'll buy a copy of it or buy a digital copy of it online and take a look at this story. And I think you'll enjoy it. Because again, it centers around the controversy and the 2 games that the 2 She-Ras played in last November and this past March. Mention of this tournament is not part of the storyline, but I will say this, that at the end of this story, Fashion Girl made She-Ra a member of the Style Chicks on a permanent basis, only because of She-Ra's involvement with the Style Chicks. And I'm going to close this out with this thought. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. As I said, Fashion Girl has a group of allies that she can rely upon and trust upon. But She-Ra, in a way, is a Style Chick in the fact that she, too, has a battery of allies that are there for her when she needs them. I mean, when you consider Glimmer, Casaspella, Natasa, Spinnerella, Peekaboo, Perfuma, and Bo, in a way, they are She-Ra's style chicks. Well, except for Bo, of course, but you get my point. And I admit that at first I didn't think of it at the time, but now that I look back on this controversy and how Fashion Girl's storyline goes, they really are not any different than Day is from Night. They are very similar in terms of how they defeat the bad guys and the people that they trust in their help fighting these bad guys. And I hope that you will enjoy the book. It will be called The Final Adventures of Fashion Girl. And it will be available hopefully sometime in the near future. I cannot give you a date yet because I'm not sure myself. But once I know for sure, I will let you know. And now, without any further delay, here are the results of this week's competition between the two She-Ras. As I stated previously, He-Man would be ineligible for any episode concerning the original She-Ra, except on 2 occasions. In round 12 was one of those occasions, and for round 19, it was the other occasion that was required. And therefore, for round 19, the episodes were as follows. In the original series, He-Man meets She-Ra, learns the fact that she is his sister, and they reunite with her parents on Eternia, while the new Adora and the new Glimmer meet up with Bo's family, and we come to the following episodes. For the original series, the episode is called Reunions, and the episode for the new series is called Reunion. And here are the results of the episodes. As you probably would imagine, both of my moderators were on this weekend, and they both gave the episode Reunions of the original series the highest score possible of 8. And they both thought it was one of the best episodes they had ever heard. And it is, again, part of the mini-series that spawned the original series. And it is a great episode and one that I do recommend highly. But to my surprise, for the new She-Ra episode, Reunion, they both gave, my senior moderator gave the score of 6 points. He actually thought that there was a lot of character development involved. Now, I admit, though, that I have heard a lot of things about this particular episode and the fans' negativity towards it. But you got to remember that these episodes are being presented in audio format only. And when you're listening to an episode as opposed to watching it, you do get a different perspective on the episode in general. And therefore, at the end of 19 rounds and the end of the third quarter, the score is now the original She-Ra 126, the new She-Ra 63. In just a moment, we will have the results for you for round 20. As we begin the fourth and final quarter of competition in this tournament, we begin with round 20. And I didn't think at the time last week that the original episode called The Price of Power, I was going to use it for this round of competition, but because I used it previously, I couldn't use it again. But I did select a different episode that does have similarity between the two episodes, and here's how it is. For round 20, the new episode is called The Price of Power, and we put it in parentheses, the 2019 version, versus the original episode called Into the Dark Dimension. And here's how each episode fared in this round. For the original episode, Into the Dark Dimension, both of my moderators gave it a score of 8 points. And they said that this was one of the better episodes of the original series. And I do agree with it because it is a very good episode. And again, one that I highly recommend. And this marks the 4th time this tournament, the original She-Ra, has gotten a perfect score. But here's something even more surprising. For the episode, The Price of Power, the 2019 version of the new series, my junior moderator gave it a score of 7 points. And this is the first time the new She-Ra has gotten a score of 7 points. And he didn't give a particular reason, but I guess, again, based on what you hear and not just what you see, the episode was good in the opinions of both of my moderators. And I was really surprised by it myself because everybody has had such negative comments about the new series in general. But again, when you listen to an episode of a bad show, it might actually be not as bad as you might think if you just watch it instead. And therefore, at the end of 20 rounds, the score is now the original She-Ra 134, the new She-Ra 70. And again, next week we will continue the competition, and we are in the home stretch. The final round of competition will be slated for October 18th, and you won't want to miss the finale of this competition. And until next Sunday, I remain humbly, obediently yours. Goodbye for now.